A man is walking his dog through a ravine in the middle of the nation's capital. Half buried in the leaves, pale against the dark dirt, is a human skull, and a question the country had almost stopped asking becomes impossible to ignore again. By the end of this, you'll see how the same park held two separate attacks 8 months apart, how a document investigators already had sat unused for years, and how the only man ever convicted for it walked free with no one else ever charged. One afternoon in May of 2001, a 24-year-old graduate student logs off her computer in a downtown Washington apartment. She never logs back on. You won't hear her name in the news for 5 more days. When you do, you'll hear it everywhere. Her name was Chandra Levy. She'd grown up in Modesto, California, finished a master's degree in public policy, and come to Washington the way a lot of ambitious 20-somethings do for an internship. This one, at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Friends describe her as driven, organized, the kind of person who planned things well in advance. Her flight home to California was already booked. It was scheduled for just days after she vanished. On April 30th, she's seen at a gym near her apartment in DuPont Circle, a normal errand. Nothing that reads like a goodbye. The next morning, May 1st, she spends hours online. Among other things, she looks up a large wooded park not far from her apartment, Rock Creek Park. Just after 1 in the afternoon, she logs off. That's it. That's the last confirmed trace of Chandra Levy. No struggle in the apartment, no sign of a break-in. Her suitcase, packed for the trip home, sits by the door, untouched. A woman getting ready to leave the city who simply never leaves the room. 6 days pass before anyone official even starts looking. And when Chandra's parents finally can't stand the silence any longer, the first 2 calls they make are revealing all on their own. One goes to the Washington police. The other goes to their congressman. If you want more cases worked like this one, properly, with real sources, not shortcuts, subscribing helps us keep making them. Now, back to Chandra. Chandra's congressman is a 53-year-old, married representative from her own hometown district, Gary Condit. You've probably already guessed why calling him felt like a natural second call. Chandra and Condit had been having an affair. At first, nobody says that out loud. On May 16, reporters get hold of an email Chandra wrote months earlier, vaguely mentioning a romantic interest with ties to Congress. Condit's office denies any affair, flatly. Then on July 6, Chandra's aunt goes public. She says her niece told her directly about the relationship with Condit. That same day, in his 3rd interview with police, Condit finally admits it. A romantic relationship. Nothing more, he insists. Nothing to do with her disappearance. By now, this isn't a missing persons case anymore. It's a national story, running on every channel every night. Condit sits for a televised interview with ABC's Connie Chung, and according to reporters covering it, instead of answering the obvious questions, he deflects. Again and again. You can watch the tape today and count the number of times he simply doesn't answer. His political career effectively ends on camera, in real time. And underneath all of that knowledge, a 24-year-old woman is still missing. Through that summer, search teams comb the city's parks. Volunteers hand out flyers. Her parents fly back and forth from California, giving interview after interview, refusing to let the story die. Then, in September, the entire country's attention turns to something else entirely. Chandra Levy disappears from the national conversation almost overnight. Her parents keep looking anyway. A year passes. On May 22, 2002, more than a year after Chandra logged off her computer for the last time, a man is walking his dog through a wooded, overgrown section of Rock Creek Park. This is the same moment you saw at the very start of this video. Now you know what led up to it. He finds a human skull. Investigators comb the area and recover more remains nearby. Dental records confirm it within days. This is Chandra. On May 29th, police officially rule her death a homicide. But here's the detail that will matter for the next 15 years. The remains have been outdoors for a full year. They're too decomposed for the medical examiner to determine an actual cause of death. Police can say a crime happened here. They still can't say exactly how. And here's the part that makes this harder to accept. Police had already searched parts of Rock Creek Park back in 2001, within days of Chandra's disappearance. But the search plan only covered about 100 yards out from the roads and trails. Nobody walked down into the ravine itself, the exact spot where her remains were sitting the entire time. It gets worse. After the remains were found, investigators hired privately by the Levy family went back to the same scene and found a human leg bone and a piece of twisted wire that police had missed entirely. Washington's own police chief, Charles Ramsey, publicly criticized his own department over it. For years, the case goes cold. No new leads, no named suspect. Then in 2006, investigators take a second look, this time focusing on the park itself. It turns out Rock Creek Park had a pattern. In the months around Chandra's disappearance, at least 2 other women had been attacked while jogging there, grabbed, assaulted in broad daylight. A man named Ingmar Guandique, an undocumented immigrant from El Salvador, had already been convicted for both of those assaults. Here's what makes this genuinely hard to sit with. On May 7, 2001, 6 days after Chandra vanished, Guandique was arrested for an unrelated burglary in the same area. He was released that same day. He wasn't done. On May 14th, he attacked a woman jogging in Rock Creek Park with a knife. On July 1st, he attacked another. Both survived. Both would later testify against him, Christy Wiegand and Hal Schilling by name, in open court. While the entire country was watching a congressman squirm through a television interview, the same man was attacking joggers with a knife in the exact park where Chandra's remains were already lying. Nobody connected it for 5 more years. Investigators believe they've finally found their man. Guandique is charged in 2009. At trial in November 2010, prosecutors don't have DNA. They don't have a weapon. They don't have a confession. What they have is the testimony of one man, Armando Morales, Guandique's former cellmate, who claims Guandique confessed the murder to him in prison. That's the entire case. A jury convicts anyway. Guandique is sentenced to 60 years. For most people watching the news that week, this is where the story ends. The man who killed Chandra Levy has finally been found. It isn't where the story ends. Here's how it actually comes apart. In the summer of 2015, a woman named Babs Proler is staying at a motel in Maryland. So is Armando Morales, the jailhouse informant whose word convicted Guandique recently out of prison. They strike up a friendship. It has nothing to do with the case. Something about him unsettles her, though. After Morales threatens to hurt her ex-husband, she starts secretly recording their conversations, just to protect herself. On tape, Morales says something he never said on the witness stand. He says he lied. He says Guandique never actually confessed to him at all. A recording made by a private citizen, for reasons that had nothing to do with justice, is what actually reopens this case. It gets worse from there. It turns out the prosecution already had reason to doubt Morales, a long, documented history of trading testimony for benefits in other cases. That fact was legally required to reach the jury. It never did. Washington Post reporters who investigated the original prosecution would later describe it as institutional tunnel vision, a determination to close the case that overrode the basic duty to tell the truth. In 2022, a disciplinary committee made it official. The lead prosecutor, Amanda Haynes, had withheld evidence she was required to disclose. A judge throws out the conviction and orders a new trial. And then in July of 2016, prosecutors go one step further. They announce they won't retry Guandique at all. 15 years after Chandra Levy vanished. 6 years after a jury said guilty. The District of Columbia admits on the record that it cannot prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Every charge is dropped. In 2017, Guandique is deported to El Salvador. The man convicted of killing Chandra Levy is a free man on another continent. And officially, once again, nobody has been proven to have killed her at all. As for Gary Condit, the congressman whose affair with Chandra dominated headlines for a year, he was never charged with anything. Investigators at the time publicly stated he wasn't a suspect in her death. But according to how the press and public treated it at the time, the suspicion around him was never formally, officially closed the way an actual clearance would be. It simply faded, the way scandals do, once a different name took its place in the headlines. His career didn't survive the story either way. In 2002, Condit lost his own party's primary, badly, to a former protege. He left Congress the following year and became a political consultant. In 2016, he published a book about the scandal called Actual Malice. He has always maintained he had nothing to do with her disappearance. So think about what actually happened here, start to finish. A sitting member of Congress had an affair with a missing woman and was investigated but never charged. A man was convicted largely on a single informant's word, then set free when that word turned out to be compromised. And a quarter century later, the only verdict this case has ever actually earned is unsolved. 25 years on, the murder of Chandra Levy remains, officially, unsolved. Her parents, Robert and Susan Levy, are still here, and they're still talking about their daughter. According to an interview they gave News Nation in May of 2026, they now believe her death may connect to her curiosity about UFOs and a possible connection to intelligence agencies. To be clear, that isn't a finding from any investigation. It isn't evidence. It's a theory two parents have arrived at after a quarter century of official answers that never actually came. Maybe it's easier after 25 years of nothing solid to reach for an answer, any answer, than to keep sitting with none at all. There's also a broader footnote worth sitting with. According to media critics, the sheer volume of coverage Chandra's case received coverage that other missing women in Washington that same era simply never got, is a textbook example of what one journalist later named missing white woman syndrome. The congressman made this case impossible to look away from. Plenty of other cases, just as urgent, never got that chance. What actually happened to Chandra Levy in the hours after she logged off her computer that afternoon in May of 2001 is still, genuinely, unknown. The man convicted for it walked free. The congressman at the center of the scandal was never charged with anything. And the park where her remains were eventually found had already, quietly, hosted 2 other attacks that same year, attacks investigators had on file the entire time. If there's a lesson in how this case fell apart, it might be this. A single witness and a single piece of withheld paperwork was enough to take a prosecution that looked, for 6 years, like a closed case, and unravel it completely. Chandra Levy was 24. She had just finished a graduate degree. She had a flight booked home. She had, by every account from the people who knew her, a plan for her life. One this park and this silence cut short. Somewhere, the person responsible for that has never had to answer for it. So the question this case leaves behind isn't really who did this, though that question still matters, and it's still open. It's this. How many convictions in how many other cases are resting on exactly the kind of single, uncorroborated word that fell apart here?